Okay guys, so today I want to go over skills and how skill damage is actually calculated. For most people I know this doesn't matter, and they just want to see big number get bigger. And in order to do that, they'll add whatever mods, reactors, and components that they can to make that number get bigger. But there is actually a way to prioritize this to ensure you're getting the most damage. Now, not everybody is a min-maxer, and I completely get that, but I do think it is worth at least understanding the basics of how this math is calculated, just to help ensure that you're getting the most out of the builds that you create, or that you're getting the most out of the builds that you find online. Now, don't worry, before we jump into this, I want to let you know that this isn't a very math-heavy video, and we're not going to beat you over the head with math. Now, I will be showing you some numbers, and the reason we're doing that is so you understand that what we're showing is not just some sort of magic that we're pulling out of our ass. We did run numbers on our side to ensure that this is accurate. So having said all that, this is the calculator that I'm going to use. And the reason I'm using this is to just verify what I'm saying actually happens in the game, so you don't think I'm trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Now, there are a lot of things going on this sheet, but I'm going to show you how this sheet relates to our character in just a second. And I'm not going to go over every last little thing, but just know that what you're seeing right here is an amalgamation of what is actually happening on my character. You're going to see our skill power base, and you get that from your reactor. Now, the optimization is whether we have the right weapon equipped or not, and in this case we do, so that's why we have a 1.6 multiplier. Now, the faction bonus up top we do not have. We do not have a faction bonus multiplier on our reactor, so we're leaving that blank. So you can see the total baseline stat matches what it shows on the skills on the reactor. So the other thing you're going to notice on here is buckets, and we're going to explain buckets here in a little bit, but what you're going to see is that we essentially have 4 buckets. Bucket 1 is our skill power ratio. Bucket 2 is our attrib or attribution power ratio. Bucket 3 will be our type ratios. And then our 4th bucket is all of our modifiers, including our skill modifiers. So these values are filled in based on what we have in game. Now, if you look at this spreadsheet, it does show that we should be doing roughly 131,000 damage. And if you look in game, that is actually what we do when we use our number 1 skill on the enemy. Now, to double verify the chart is working, we are going to go ahead and zero out all of these bonuses, and we are going to go ahead and take off all of the mods we have in game. As you can see here, we have no bonuses to our current skills, and it shows that we should be doing about 57,000 damage in game. And if you look on the screen, you'll see that we do indeed do 57,000 damage in game. Now, all of that was just to show that this sheet works and that these damage buckets are set up properly. But now we need to go over what damage buckets actually are. So damage buckets are essentially a bucket that you put damage in, hence the name. So for most of these, they actually only hold one thing, so it's a pretty shallow bucket. Your bucket 1 only holds skill power ratio. So where do you get skill power ratio? One of the easiest ways to get skill power ratio is by adding the power increase mod to your character. In doing so, you will see that you get a base skill power ratio of 0.65. Now, there are additional ways to increase that, such as adding the Slayer set. You can see here in the set effects that the Slayer set will add skill power of plus 26.1. And as you can see, putting this on did increase our base skill power boost ratio by that value. The big takeaway here from Bucket 1 is Bucket 1 includes any of your skill power ratios. So if you want to increase Bucket 1, put on items that increase your skill power ratio when you look at your character inspection screen. So for your second bucket, we're going to be talking about attribute power ratio. Things that modify this are going to be things that modify fire skills, non-attribute skills, chill skills, and all the rest. So for this example, we have removed the power increase and we have just added fire integration and focus on fire. Both of these are fire skill power pluses. If you go into the inspection screen, you can see that this added to our fire skill boost power ratio bucket. So for our second bucket, that is how you get attribute power ratio. The only thing that will ever go in your second bucket is anything that modifies your attributes power ratio. Now for your third bucket, we're looking at type power ratio. These are actually a little bit harder to get. These power ratios are tied directly to different types of skills, such as singular skills, tech skills, and anything like that. A couple quick things to note here. If you are looking at your module screen and you add focus on tech or something like that, you will see that this actually adds a power modifier, which is much different from just skill power. And we'll explain what these modifiers do in a minute, but just know that these are not the same thing. You need to ensure that what you're getting here says boost ratio, and those are very, very hard to get. Most of the time, you're going to get those off of your reactor. Now, there are some component sets that will add these as well. As you can see here on the Plague set, you can get a 5% tech skill power boost ratio from putting this set on. Just know out of the top 3 buckets we have discussed, this one is one that is a little bit harder to fill, just because there are not as many great options to really stack damage numbers in this bucket. Now, the 4th bucket is actually quite a large bucket, and we're going to go over that really quick. Your 4th bucket actually encompasses a lot. So as we were talking before, there are modifiers that you can get when it comes to your skill power, your attributes, your type, and on the skills themselves. So remember that tech mod we were showing before? Yup, that was a modifier. The value of that will get clumped into this bucket in one of these attribute modifier slots. If you have anything else that says modifier on it, it will also get clumped into this bucket, and it will all be added together at the end of the bucket before we use it in the math. The other thing you need to keep in mind here is that your skill modifiers also go in this bucket. So you know that Lepic Grenade skill that has a skill power times 1100? Yeah, that modifier goes in this bucket as well. Why that matters is because this bucket is very, very, very easy to start to dilute. This will probably be one of your biggest buckets, especially with the changes to Descendants currently. But the flip side to that coin is once you start getting this bucket full, adding more to it doesn't really net you as much as if you added things to the other buckets. So this next part, I'm going to explain how the buckets are used and how your final damage number comes out. Again, I'm not going to beat you up with a lot of math because we all know the spreadsheet works because I've demonstrated that it works. The important part here is that you just understand how this is going to math together, because it's going to help make some sense of the thing that I show you next. To get our baseline stat, we're going to take our skill power times our optimization condition, and then we're going to take that value and add it to a faction bonus if we have one on our reactor. When that's all said and done, we're going to get our baseline stat. Now, we take our baseline stat and we multiply it across the 4 buckets. So we will take our baseline stat and we'll multiply it by whatever the value is of our bucket 1. So just for this, we'll put a 0.5 in there just to show you how this would work. So we're going to take our baseline stat of 17,000 and multiply it by 1.5. Then we're going to take that value and do the same thing with the second bucket. We're going to then multiply that value by 1.5 again. We're going to assume that we had a 0.5 down here, and we're going to take that value and multiply it by 1.5 again. You can see where this is starting to stack up and get you a lot of damage. Now, when we get this value, we are going to take it and multiply it by the overall value of our bucket 4. Now remember, our bucket 4 is our skill power modifier plus any other modifiers that we would have had. For this example, I'm not going to add modifiers here, but you understand how they work based on the way we've done everything up above. So the value that we received after multiplying by bucket 3, we will then multiply by the value of bucket 4. When that's done, you will come out with this number here. Roughly 700,000 is your base skill power before any damage reductions. So if you were to hit an enemy that had no damage reduction whatsoever, you would be doing about 700,000 damage per attack. Now, that's not what actually happens in the game. All enemies in the game have some type of armor or damage reduction. So in all the examples we were showing before, we were going up against Pyro. Based on all of our math, Pyro has a 72% damage reduction. Which means we get 27% of our damage when we attack Pyro. That's what this damage reduction number is here. So we are going to take the value of our burst, multiply it by this damage reduction number, and this tells us the amount of damage that we would do if we hit Pyro with a skill. Just to reiterate that, we are going to go ahead and show you that if we set our spreadsheet up to match what we have in game, that this actually happens the way we said. So what we're showing here is our skills. As you can see, we have a skill power boost ratio of 0.65. We have a fire skill boost ratio of 0.287, and we have a tech skill modifier of 0.951. Our reactor skill base is 11060 with an optimization condition. So if you look down bottom where it shows skill power when equipped, you can see we have 17,697, which is exactly what it shows on our spreadsheet as well. And if you look at our damage on screen, we do indeed do 131,006 damage. So all in all, our buckets are working and everything works right. So at this point, you know everything you need to know about buckets, how they work, and how you fill those buckets. But now I want to talk about normalization, because this is going to help you understand which buckets you want to focus on filling. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is 4 different examples. The important part to note here is that we have 16 points total added into the ratios. So what does that mean? In example 1, we have 1.4, 1.2, 1.4, and 1.6. If you add the points up, you come up with 16 total points. That is important because that is what we're going to be looking at as we look across these examples. So in our first example, you can see that things are not very well normalized. We're using this as just a baseline for a theoretical damage. I like to use small numbers because I think small numbers are easier to understand. So in this example, with our 4 buckets being distributed the way it shows here, we get 7.52 damage. Now, if you look over in example 2, we actually still have 16 points distributed, but in this distribution, we have sort of overloaded a couple buckets and taken out of other ones. Now, in doing this, we've still spent the same amount of points, but our damage has actually gone down. Now, if you look over to the third example, I've done the opposite. The first 2 buckets, I've normalized some. So both of them are 1.3. And in doing so, if you look, our damage has actually increased even more than our first example. We're up to 7.57. So if you look over to our fourth example, we have tried to normalize the bottom 2 buckets as much as we can. And you can see that we ended up with even more of an increase. And when you look at our final example, you can see that we have normalized all of the buckets. And in doing that, we have actually got the most damage that we can get when it comes to using those 16 points total. So the important part here is just to show you how much normalizing matters. You don't want to overload any one of your buckets if you can avoid it. So when it comes to setting up your builds, try to do what you can to normalize your values and try to get each bucket to be as close to the other one as possible. Don't just overload all of your damage into one bucket. Now, having said all of that, you do have to remember one thing. With the most recent patches to the Descendants, a lot of the Descendants' 4th bucket has had a bunch dumped in it. Well, what do I mean by that? Your skill power modifier that you get from your skills for a lot of Descendants post-patch has really been ratcheted up. So for example, on Lepic with his grenade, his skill power is multiplied by 1,100%. So if we look at that on our spreadsheet, that is a 11.7. That is a giant number that is going to be in your 4th bucket. So if you have skills that have giant modifiers, keep that in mind because that bucket is already astronomical. So in a situation like this, you would want to try to add as much as you can to buckets 1, 2, and 3. And then if you have no other option, then add damage to your bucket 4 because your bucket 4 is already insanely large and you will get more value out of adding to your first 3 buckets as we just saw in the normalization example. All right, guys, and that is it. I tried to make this as simple as possible and I didn't want to beat you up with a lot of numbers, but unfortunately we did have to show some math just so you knew how things were working. I wanted to really break this down and explain the buckets to people. That way you know how to really maximize what you're getting out of your skilled Descendants. But having said that, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Did you know all of this about skill buckets, or is this the first time you're actually looking at it? Hopefully my explanation helped and made your life a little bit easier when it comes to assessing builds. And if you like the content, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. And as always, you can come see us live on Twitch. We do stream 5 days a week and we have a great community over there and we would love to see you. We do play First Descendant live on stream and we do play other games. So no matter what type of content you're looking for, I'm sure we have something for you. But having said all that, thanks for watching, guys, and as always, Have a great day.